Assalamu alaikum. I hope that you're doing well. So this was originally a Naveed Bhai voiceover, but sadly the audio got corrupted. So here I am re-recording it just in case. So proteins. This is the qualitative analysis of proteins. Let's say you're given a sample and you're asked, hey, does it have protein or not? That's the first thing that you should ask. Is it a protein or not? How do I test if it's a protein or not? So you perform the Pyruvate test, right? Now, what is the Pyruvate test? It's basically alkaline copper sulfate, right? And then you would, put the reagent in the test tube and you'll shake it, and then you will find that if there would be a color change, right? If there would be a color change in the sample that would lead to a blue or violet color forming, that would mean that the peptide bond is present. And of course, when you know that the peptide bond is present, that definitely means there is a presence of protein in that sample. Okay, so that's basically how you identify if there's a protein present or not. Also, you could use these tests. So you could use the lead acetate test or the sulfo something test, right? You could use that. All right, let's go on to the other level. Let's get a bit fancy here. So if we were to get a bit fancy, by fancy I mean really like boiling it down to the individual amino acid, you would start off by the acetic acid test, right? Now the acetic acid test is used to find out which, like it's used for boiling down which uh, amino acid would it be. So there are two results for the acetic acid test. It's either a white PPT forming or a non-white PPT forming. So if a white PPT forms, that means it is the casein protein, and you're done. You got your answer. But if there is no white PPT formation, it could mean four different things. It could mean that globulin is present. It could mean that a gelatin is present. It could mean that peptone is present, or it could mean that albumin is present. Okay? Could be either of those. So what would you do to actually make like go deeper down, find out which one would it be? You would perform the heat coagulation test, right? And that also has a few results. So let's say there's the formation of coagulation, there is coagulation. That would boil it down to two options. It could be either albumin or globulin. Okay, but what if there's no coagulation? So it would mean that there is either gelatin or peptone, and you're done there, right? If there's no coagulation, it could either be gelatin and peptone, and then you could perform a color test to find out which one specifically it is, right? So there's that. Now, finally, for albumin and globulin, to find out which one it is, you would perform a saturation test. So there's a half saturation test and there's a full saturation test. So the full saturation test tells you about the albumin, okay? While the half saturation test, if it's positive, it would tell you about the globulin protein. All right. So this is it. This is the qualitative analysis. If I were to give you a very quick overview again, you would know that the Biret test is the most common, most prominent way of identifying if there's protein present in a given sample. The other types could be lead acetate test or sulfo something test, right? That's what you could use. Now, when you get fancy, you try to boil down which amino acid would it be. So you perform the acetic acid test, and that would give you two results. If there's a white PPT forming, it would be casein. If there's no white PPT forming, it could be either of these four. And that's where the real game begins, where you try to boil it down to the specific type of amino acid. So you perform heat coagulation. There are two results. It would either coagulate or it would not coagulate, right? If it would coagulate, you would have two options, albumin and globulin. If it does not, then gelatin and peptone. And then finally, you would perform the full saturation or half saturation to boil down whether it's albumin or globulin. Okay, and for the gelatin peptone, you would perform a color test. Okay, so yeah, that's about it. This is it for proteins. and I'll see you tomorrow or some other day. Assalamu alaikum. Allah Hafiz.